Welcome back to Be Determined. In today's episode, I've got the second half of my interview with Kirk Demarais, and we're going to explore his book Mail Order Mysteries, where he has collected all of these items that you could have ordered out of comic books in the 60s and 70s. And then we keep going and dig a little deeper into what the future of collecting is in this digital world in which we live. So buckle up, Kirk's got some great stories for us, and I think you're going to enjoy them. Okay, we left off. You'd found Chris's Ware's secret email and gotten him to write the introduction for your book on the SS Abrams company, right, who is one of the main manufacturer of novelty goods everywhere. Yes. And then Chris Ware, out of the goodness of his heart, unbeknownst to you, sends your material on to Chip Kidd, who's ostensibly one of the most significant designers of books and printed material. That's Chip right. Kidd, he just sends your stuff to Chip Kidd.
And Chip Kidd writes back, says he loves it. He gives me a blurb on the back of the book. I've since been able to meet Chip numerous times, and that made a connection. And so, yeah, these are two guys that I was just idolizing at the time. I had no clue that this would connect us, and it did. And just another incredible thing.
So let's creep on, since we sort of we've got a decent idea. Let's talk about Mail Order Mysteries.
Well, the Mail Order Mysteries would not have existed without the Abrams book. I had this book. It was distributed by Abrams. Like I mentioned earlier, they sold it through like magic retailers, so very limited audience. And I thought maybe I'll contact one of my favorite publishers and see if they would be interested in distributing it. I mean, I didn't know how things worked or anything, but so what did I do? Oh, it was through Mark, how do you say his name? Frauenfelder?
I don't know how you say his name.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about? Boing Boing.
Yeah, he's the Boing Boing guy. I've dealt with him a little bit.
Yes, and so he had contacted me about the book. That's right up his alley. He had his feelers out, and I mentioned I'd like to get it distributed better, and he said, well, why don't you send it to my editor at Chronicle Books? And Chronicle, that's most of the books that I own are from Chronicle, probably, if there's a single publishing house. And I'm like, absolutely. So I sent copies to this editor. He wrote me back, thanks, we can't really help you. Another editor there named Kevin Toyama, he saw the book laying around. He reads the book, he likes it, he sees that it has a link to my website, he goes to the website, he likes it. He contacts me and says, is there something on your website that you might want to, maybe we could make a book out of? He goes, I'm thinking this part that says Mail Order Mysteries. And so jumping back to the 90s, that was one of the things I put on the site, was I would find eBay auctions that had the items from the Johnson Smith, and I would compare them. And so that had been sitting online since the late 90s. And I was like, yeah, that'd be fantastic. I love this stuff. I've been collecting more of this stuff. And so he said, okay, well, let's put together a pitch. And so I start buying more online. I already had been. There was a point in there where you and I connected in LA, and I even showed you some of the early pages. And that's when you gave me, you in turn gave me the pirate set, and the mail order 101 pirates, and you gave me the massive mold that they used, which both appear in the book.
The original sculpt.
Yes, the sculpt. Yeah, not the mold. Sorry.
What happened was that, just sort of, let me give you my little part of that story, is I used to always go every month to the Rose Bowl flea market, which is the biggest collectible flea market in this area. And one day we roll up on this booth, and there's the big ship, which is, it's a big piece of plaster that's been painted. And then there was like a pirate. Maybe there were three. There was either two or three. I don't remember.
You gave me one of them, yeah. Or maybe you gave me both of them, yeah.
I don't remember. I feel like I sold one, but
okay.
Maybe there was a third one. I don't remember. And then there was a number of the a number of the boxes of pirates,
Yeah.
and then there was a bunch of slides and a few other things, and it was from Kosman,
Yes.
Joseph E. Kosman, who
That's right.
was the guy who did the Spudnut gun.
Yes, and you
And
gave me some
so,
film reels too of some of their promotional films,
so
and I still
because
have those. I still have all that you gave me. Yeah.
yeah, so Kosman must have lived in L.A. and then he passed away, and then this dealer had ended up with that stuff.
Oh wow. And
Yeah,
then you managed to give it to me. So yeah, that was. I still don't even understand how they get those giant sculpts reduced into something like that.
there's a machine called, it's like, it's not Pantone, but it's like starts with a P, and what the machine does is it it has one part that's on one side, and then the other part's like a drill, and then it scales down. So they run this thing over, and it makes it cuts out a little scaled down model of whatever your bigger thing is.
That's
It
bizarre. It's so hard
Yeah.
to picture. I need to see that happen. Yeah. So that. Yeah. So we had met. And so the whole process between Kevin saying, let's try to do this, and it actually being done took, I mean, the book came out in 2011, and we started in probably 2006. So it was about 5 years, because we came up with a pitch. We pitched it to Chronicle. They said no, based on the previous, like they're like, well, here's the retro category. I don't know what info they were looking at, but their past retro books, or the most recent ones, weren't selling well enough.
Sure.
And so then we retooled the pitch and tried to push it as an art book, called it like The Art of Mail Order or something. And so I did more artful photos. Things were like really, scaled up, and we pitched that to their art department, or their art book department, and that got the axe. And then Kevin lost his job there, or quit. I don't know what the surrounding story was, but Kevin was no longer there. He bounced to another publisher. I think got bought by Insight Editions or merged or something like that. But Insight Editions, at one point, Kevin finally came into as an editor at Insight Editions, and he pitched it again. So I mean, Kevin championed this thing for years. And again, I'm not as tenacious as all that. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I guess it's not going to happen. Okay, well, but Kevin fought for this thing, so I owe the whole thing to him. And he's out of San Francisco. And at the time he pitched it, it was a much smaller company then, and they gave it the green light. And that was. I have a copy right here. Yeah, and so it was Kevin's idea to put glow in the dark treatment on.
Oh, yeah. It's got a great treatment on it. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was great. He's as far as collaborating, he's one of the greatest collaborators I've ever worked with, because I love it when you get good feedback, but he had ideas that were above and beyond. It wasn't just good feedback; it was like just great ideas being thrown out there. And so it was just a dream to work with him, and he made it a much better thing than it would have been. So that's Mail Order Mystery Story, and now it exists.
And what kind of feedback have you gotten? What kind of did this lead to any connections or any sort of further, because this was back in 2011, right?
Yes, I mean, it's connected me, I mean, with countless people. I mean, a lot of people just fans. I mean, even up until last week, I still get people just writing me about their experiences, or some people have sent me certain items and things like that. I mean, it's connected me with some notables, some celebs. I don't want to name drop here, but I mean, there's been some like J.J. Abrams and I have gone back and forth. But that even goes back to the Abrams stuff. J.J. He sells Abrams, or he gives Abrams things away, like at Bad Robot Studios. He has had a big rack of them, and it all ties into his grandfather's fascination with magic and the whole mystery box thing, and
mystery
all
box
that.
thing.
And so Abrams mentioned my book and website in like Wired magazine and Rolling Stone and stuff like that. And so it's connected me. It's connected me with I think I can. It's long enough. I can talk about. There have been some like production, like movie studios that have contacted me about it. It's
About
been
doing about, but me like optioning the book as
yeah, it's been optioned numerous times, which it's not.
what?
There's no narrative to it. So, but you don't even you can make Battleship. You can make a Ouija board into a movie. And I made a narrative out of that before right here. So it's been optioned a bunch of times. I've talked to a bunch of producers over the years, even up until recently. So I don't have my hopes up on any of that, but it's gotten me all kinds of it's opened doors for me. Publishing wise, I haven't written that into the next book. I do have some ideas, but yeah, it's a life changer for sure.
Now, is it currently under option?
No, it is not. So, hey,
So if anybody's
producers,
watching this,
I
you're
mean,
ready to go.
I have kind of there's some people that are maybe promoting it. We may have kind of a handshake agreement right now, but it's been officially there's been official work behind it before, and that is not happening now. So yeah, it's all you producers watching, it's the next hot commodity.
Now, you and I, so we met, through the internet, know each other. You've come out to Comic Con a few times, and we've spent a little bit of time together.
That's right.
And I hooked you up, I think, with Gallery 1988.
Let's see. Yeah. We
I think
how did that all happen? There was the initial.
let's talk a little bit about your art career.
Well, let's talk about
what else
can
do
we
you
talk
have?
about us? Let's
What
talk
else?
about us.
Us? What's us?
Us is when I discovered you.
What?
Isn't that-
No, you're gonna
isn't
use
that
the
great?
freaky magnet against me?
No, not at all. This is one day, again in the
dear.
mid 90s, before I had access to the internet, I went to a store called Hastings, and they had a really nice magazine collection and occasionally some zine-like material as well. And I see this issue on the shelf.
What issue is that? What issue?
It is number 7.
Number 7. Okay.
What year exactly? I don't know if there's copyright in here, but I see this and I'm like, no. It says Freaky Magnet. That cannot reference Freaky Cereal, but there's Freakies. I'm like, I felt like I was dreaming. I thought this isn't real in this tiny little shop. And I go through here and there's this whole subculture I was seeing for the very first time. And I don't know if it's this issue or the next issue, but you're all through these things. And you had ads in these things. I'm trying to see.
Yes, I did.
And that put there's Dwayne. I've met Dwayne. Is it Demick?
Dwayne.
I've met
Dwayne
him.
Demick. If you went to San Diego Comic Con,
I have met him. Shop at his booth. But anyway, the fast food toy show. Anyway, this put you on my radar, and so immediately I went and looked you up online. Eventually,
so this is before we knew each other. This is like your first. Okay.
Yeah, and so I remember sending. Is the guy named Kevin who did this magazine?
Kevin Meisner.
Kevin Meisner.
Kevin's still out there. He's not really in fandom that much, but he's still around.
Oh, that's good to know. Because I would email him a lot. I sent him like this goofy movie I made out of toys talking to each other. And so, I don't know. Just anything to penetrate this world. And you were at the epicenter of all of that. So, as soon as the internet comes along, your name's popping up everywhere. You got all the toys, Crazy Kids Food. I mean, that was even later, but I snatched that thing up. And then we connected. The Gallery 88, the initial.
Well, as I remember it, which I think this is right.
Okay.
You came to Comic-Con and you had your project.
Yes.
And I think Jensen was like standing there at my booth, and you were standing there at my booth, and I was like, Jensen, Kirk, Jensen, is that what happened? Or
that's not the story that I remember. But
okay,
we may have eventually all connected.
Okay.
Because my Jensen story is that was a biggie for me. like you said, I had this the printout. Well, the year before they had the Crazy for Cult show. I see that online, and my mind blew up. And because all these movies I liked, I never thought of them as cult movies. I'm seeing artists handle these movies in these fresh ways, different takes that you're not going to see on the official publications and whatnot. And so when I saw there was going to be another one, this would be probably early summer of 2000, whatever year that would have been, 2008. I was like, oh, I got to get in that show. And so I just started drawing stuff, just completely, on spec, I guess. I had no idea if they even accepted stuff. I had no idea. I was just driven by, I got to make something first and see. And if I make something, then I will move forward with this thing.
Okay.
That's when I came up with my first family portrait of the Torrance family from The Shining. I had them in a Kmart-like setting. I should have brought that. But it's like a Kmart family portrait of Jack and family, Danny, and I made a couple more of those. I had a series of those. One was Fargo. So I had those. I did connect with you first. I think I showed you and said I'm trying to meet Jensen. And I was going out there. I was out there with Funko because we had put together a Bigfoot film, short film called Foot for this Wacky Wobbler. And so I was already going out there, and then that's when I realized, hey, everyone's at Comic-Con. I bet this gallery's going to be at Comic-Con too. Looked up Jensen, looked up the blog, back when everyone had a blog. He's like, going to Comic-Con, gonna be at this booth at this time. He was gonna go to the Matchbox booth and hand out prints, like artists' Matchbox prints. And
okay.
So we did connect. I did show you the thing. We may have talked about Jensen, what he looks like or something like that. But my first meeting with Jensen was terrifying because first I had to kind of stalk him to find his photo. Found one on Flickr, and I found him at the booth. I had my dumb 3D colored printouts of this art. And there he is. And I'm not an extrovert. I'm not at all. And I'm not very, except for that Garner novelty thing, I'm not very pushy. So I see Jensen standing there, and he's handing out these things. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to interrupt him while he's handing these things out. I'll just kind of hang back over here. And I'm over here up against this wall, one of those, one of those cinder block walls in the hall. And then the line goes and leaves, and I'm like, okay, I guess it's my chance, and kind of going up. But he's super popular, as you know. Jensen knows everybody. Everybody. So then a big cluster of folks would come up and talk to him, like, okay. I'm waiting for the perfect moment here. But I'm waiting, and 15 minutes goes, 30 minutes goes, 45, and I'm over here starting to get the shakes because I'm building up the whole thing so nervously. It gets up to literally over an hour. I've just been standing there in the wings, and I'm a mess. I'm sweating. I'm fearing rejection, and I was a wreck. I wrecked myself in that time. And there was a point I was like, no one knows about this but you. Well, I mean, you knew I was going to try that. No one really knows about this. You can just leave. You can just leave, and there will be no loss. There'll be no loss. And I started walking away. After an hour, I start walking just away from the booth. And I'm like, there, okay, it's no harm done. And then it's almost like I saw in my mind, I just saw these words, point of no return. You are at the point of no return. Like, this is ridiculous. You have to just do this. And I turned around and I start walking back. I mean, I was halfway through the hall by the time I made that decision. So I'm like, I'm doing it no matter what. So I'm walking fast, kind of pushing through, get back to the booth. It was glorious. Jensen was standing by himself. I'm like, there it is. The heavens have opened up. I walked to him, and then this wall of people, like, descends on him. Like, it was very cinematic because he's standing there, and it's just like, And at that point, I was like, no, I'm literally wedging through these people he knows, to get up to him. Just, I have no inhibition at this point. Well, I did. And I just walk up and I'm like, and I gave what is literally the worst introduction I've ever given in my entire life. Because when I tried to speak, like, I was just messed up. I can't, he probably thought I was on something. So I was just like, hey, kind of Bobcat Goldthwait or something. Name is Kirk. Yeah, I'm pulling my stuff out, just sweating, shaking, and I'm like, I know this is unfounded, this is uncalled for, and he's like, just a picture of cool. He's like, no man, dude, what do you got, man? Let's see it. Let's see. He knew what I was doing. He knew I was getting some art. He goes, let's see it. Okay. I'm like, okay. I'm like, handing him with my shaky hand this thing, like, hey, I do this. I'm not saying anything, and he just looks at it, and I can't quite tell. And then he goes, hey, so and so. He walks over, he takes it, shows someone, disappears with it, and I'm just standing there, and I can't tell what's going on. And he just walks back over to me. He goes, you're in. And I just I start crying at that point. I start the tears. And I was like jumping up and down. I felt like a Price is Right, game show contestant, because it was so built up at that point, and there it was, and I needed a release. I was just a ball of frayed nerves, and so yeah, he got my contact information. Said he's like, do you have any more of these? And I'm like, I can make more of those, and so yeah, that was the initial meeting, and then so at some point we were all together. We did all converge, and you took me to the gallery. You walked me to the gallery for the first time.
Did I?
Yeah, at the first show, because I flew out there for Crazy for Cult. You walked me there, and I walk up to the door. The first thing I see is Jonah Hill walking out of the gallery, and then I later found out he bought one of my pieces. I walk over, I see Will Wheaton looking at him going, oh, I was going to buy one of these and it sold out. And I'm just like, what? And then Michael Rappaport had bought The Shining piece, the actor.
Wow. Okay.
It's like, and so I was just like, it was like, what is this dream? And it was also, what's his name? Andrew of Old Man Musings. What's Andrew's last name?
Andrew Spears.
Spears, yes. I shouldn't forget. Sorry, Andrew, if you're watching this. Andrew also ushered me in. I think you may have took me to the door or something, and he ushered me in. Anyway, it was absolutely surreal. So yeah.
Wow. And then so you've continued to, you did those for a number of years. I mean, I think
more years than I wanted to. I was hoping that would just kind of get me in the door, but those did very well. So I had a show, a 2-man show, where I just did family portraits, and then I've done a bunch of commissions, and that led to a bunch of neat commissions. I got to do one for Warner Brothers for We're the Millers. I got to do one for Nick Kroll. Had a movie called Adolescent. Oh, that's bad.
Oh
yeah,
my God.
Indie movie. Not adult swimming. Adolescent Swimmers. I cannot remember the name of this movie. Came out just a few years ago. I did one for that, and then I've done some for their celeb friends and stuff like that. I got to do one for Kristen Wiig, and I've done a bunch for John Mulaney, and got to do Abrams' Lost Show, and yeah, so a bunch of awesome things with that.
Were you part of the big Lost poster thing?
I was at that show. I wasn't. What's the poster part of that?
That was one of Gallery 1988's big things. They did a series of poster releases. That's was right. All the big poster people, and
yeah,
I'm sure those posters are very expensive at this point.
Right. I was not an official poster, but they did have a show that I think when they announced either the first or the last poster, I was there, and I had just a piece of art in the show. But yeah. And then so I've worked with them. I did probably another 15 or so group shows. And at one point, once I got this job, once I got a full-time job, I've been freelancing for 10 years up until 2 years ago. I told them I won't be able to participate in this right now because I have to get like my master's degree and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that there's still an open door there once they pull the wood down off of the front now for the rioting. But I'm hoping I can deal with them again because they are awesome to work with, and I love having that connection.
So where are you at right now? What are you doing?
Starting in about 2008. Well, I worked for this greeting card company, and this university in town often would go to the creative department for adjunct professors in this greeting card company because it's owned by Hallmark. It's called Dayspring, and
Okay. I've heard of that.
they because it's one of the few like creative places that's very local. I mean, there's a lot of creative stuff going on where Walmart is, but that's less convenient. So I was one of these people who was asked, would you like to teach an art class over at the university and as an adjunct? And I said, oh, that sounds fun. Started doing that. Over the years, I started pouring more and more effort into it, started getting cooler classes to teach, and figured out like, I really like this because you get to teach it, you get to deal with these young artists, but we have to stay creative. That's part of the job. And so we have there's faculty shows and things like that. And I thought, well, that's good. I won't just get into the 9 to 5. I still have to flex my muscles and learn it's going to keep me up to date and all that. So I've been doing that for 2 years now. This will be my third as a full-time art faculty here.
And what are you doing art-wise?
Art-wise, I not as much as I'd like to, but I'm dabbling with I learned screen printing not so long ago. I turned a bunch of my old photographs into postcards, made art out of that. I've done I'm learning 3D modeling right now. So I'm kind of in a learning phase again. There's not a lot of output going on, but hopefully there will be. And then maybe I can peddle some of that through Gallery 88 or something if they'll have me. We'll see.
So what else excites you right now? What else, what you're in this sort of phase. We've seen all this. We've seen some incredible books. You're doing some teaching. How do we sum it all up?
I still continue to take in art and do art. Jumping back to childhood, that's one missing element I didn't talk about. Is just anytime I would see a cartoon, if it's Super Friends or Scooby-Doo, I'd immediately go over and draw what I just saw, and that tied into the Gallery 88 thing. I'm still doing that, and it's funny how I felt really kind of guilty about that. I'm so unoriginal. I'm not coming up with all this with my own material, and that's a valid criticism. But it's funny, teaching art history here kind of made me shed some of that guilt, because that's what artists have been doing for centuries, is painting the same stories, the Greek myths or the Christian biblical tales, or there's this handful of stories that get told and retold and retold and retold in art. And so I thought, this is in the same tradition as a lot of these historical artists, is just kind of, putting your own take on these old tales. But what else excites me would be collecting media. I collect VHS. Here's in my office. I don't know if you can see. I've got I got a VHS store going on in here. I collect paperback horror novels. I don't have any of those, but I meant to mention this too. Going back to childhood, honey, you recognize what this came from?
Yes, that is the Honeycomb did a series of 4 monster posters.
That's
3
right.
3 which are great, and then 1 which is the werewolf.
That's exactly the best way to describe him. My dad, I still have the memory of my dad pulling this out of a box of Honeycomb and saying, "Hey, Kirk, look at this." And I was probably 4 years old, and I turned around and started crying because this thing is terrifying. And so I think this may be where I love spooky things, and I think this may be what kind of put that fascination in me, where you want to look at it, but you're hesitant, you know. So I like a lot of spooky stuff. What other you want this? You want a summary now? I'm just cleaning up the. I did bring in some.
What the heck is that?
This is a Slurpee cup.
Is it actually Slurpee? Is it
the
from
One Stop Mart?
7-Eleven?
This is from 1979. It says. Well, there's a full blown.
There's a Captain America Slurpee cup. Yeah.
This is from a series called Not of This World.
I've never seen those. I collected the Slurpee cups and those kind of cups for years and years.
This just says American Promotions.
American.
Yeah, so this is one I got at the One Stop Mart. I have about 20 of these, and it's from an original series called Not of This World.
Oh, wow.
So,
wow, that's great.
Yeah, I love these things. What else did I not show you? I didn't show. Oh, and then these you've given me.
Oh, yeah, these guys.
Yeah, the Grandmother Stovers.
Now, the Grandmother Stovers they're a series of these little kits that probably were at craft stores, and then they just are all these little individual plastic things that they then put like a little novelty spin on.
At their heart, they're just like a dollhouse furniture miniature manufacturer. And then at some point in the 50s, they got the idea, let's repackage these with incredible illustrations, and let's sell them as a gift item or something you would tie onto like a baby gift or a birthday present or something. And so they put out about 150 that I know of, and
there's 150 of them. Oh
different.
My God.
I've connected with another collector, and we're trying to do something. I don't like talking about things before.
No. I that is a book that I would like to purchase. Let me put in my order for.
You got the pre-order right now. Okay, that's one. That's one.
You're on one.
Okay, that's helpful actually. Between the two of us, and I don't know if he would mind if I would. He's one of the owners of Secret Headquarters comic shop over there.
Oh, sure.
And so you may have come in contact with him. I think between the two of us, we have all of them, but maybe 4. And we know those 4 are out there because he has dug up catalogs of these things.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
And I guess maybe we can end on this since you're an educator now. What? Well, you're in.
I guess, yeah, okay.
You know, as the sort of world I exist in, I communicate with people, whatever. What does all of this stuff mean? You know, are the kids out there? Does this seep into their sort of cell phone instantaneous gratification? Are they still looking into like these? Are we going to end up with people that are going to excavate the crevices of what's happening now? I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, I think we're seeing some of that with there's the digital backlash where we get like vinyl records continuing to rise, and then you go to like Barnes and Noble and they're gift shops now, and there's the whole. What can we do if we can't sell media? If all media is available digitally, we'll make objects, and so these objects are being collected. I mean, I know they're frowned upon, but the Funko Pops, wildly popular as gift items and collectibles, and those cover so many aspects of pop culture. I think people like you and I will continue to look back. I mean, it'll probably be like people like you and I who were so influenced by the stuff when we were kids, that then you get to another age and you just want to learn about it. That's like the next step. The other weird phenomenon to me is paying money for digital assets, like in video games. Like when my son will pay $15 to $20 so his character will look like a different character. I mean, that's so foreign to me. And so that's a question. How will that kind of thing be preserved and studied? And, What do you think?
Yes. I mean, certainly when the first Animal Crossing came out, there was like a portrait of Tom Nook, that you get for your wall. And my
Okay.
wife and I, we did whatever it took to make the money in game, hours and hours of fishing and
Right.
I think there is going to be like this, how we at least can reconnect with these things by finding them.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can go back and get that Micronauts number 9 and be like,
Yeah.
I lost this and I haven't. But it's like, those little digital bits.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there going to
They're
be
even
like
more ephemeral.
yeah, will there be like a digital secondary market? Will there be, or I think of like my son plays Fortnite and he'll spend real money sometimes on these skins, and I'll say someday when you're my age, all that will be available for free. Because I'm sure the servers are going to eventually go down and no one's going to care about it except for these diehard people and hackers or someone. Maybe it'll be Epic Games will officially, but I have a feeling a lot of these digital assets will kind of be freed up. Maybe the Animal Crossing
Well,
community in 2050. Maybe they will be able to trade that digital portrait you were talking about. I mean, I don't know. Almost in the same way we have. Retro gamers. I'm one myself, but I'm curious how that world will look. I don't know. Any thoughts?
I do have one thought about that, which is a story. A friend of mine he worked for LucasArts and then he worked for Sega, and he worked on, I don't know if it was the first Sonic game. He worked on one of the big Sonic games. And, when it came out, which I don't know what year that would have been, 2000 or something. And so then years later, 15 years later, these guys that were obsessed with this game because they knew that there was stuff hidden within those streaming numbers. There was stuff hidden, which was proprietary stuff for the developers, where they would have access to these things. So these guys would track down the designers of the games to try to they needed to mine deeper into that thing they loved when they were kids. And
Yeah.
and he was able to, I know he and other people that worked on the game were able to actually give these people stuff. So I guess that is that next, there is that weird next, it's hidden in the technology.
Mm-hmm.
Your thing was hidden in an ad that
Yeah.
was pushed behind a wall of you not having, ability to write a check to get access.
Absolutely.
But there's this new, there is a new digital divide that,
Yeah.
because those guys go and they decode, they tear apart, the whole hard, the
Right.
disc they got.
Yeah. There are YouTube series I've watched. There's some very, very popular ones that have all the hidden things that the developers have stuck here and there, and that's fascinating. I mean, I see YouTube videos about the most haunted places in Grand Theft Auto, the most haunted. It's interesting how even these campfire stories and things like that and lore is being applied to like a digital environment, and sometimes especially in the quarantine, I enjoy going around and exploring these worlds, and sometimes you do get creeped out, and yeah. But I like what you're talking about, that barrier and that wall. Yeah, there has to be some resistance there, and for us sometimes it's the flea market or just the hunt or the time it takes, because you want, when you finally find that item, it's all the more exciting for sure.
Yeah, and certainly when I started this, I wanted to see a photograph of HR Puffin stuff.
Mm.
I just want to see a photograph.
Right.
Just a photograph. And I mean,
Right.
literally, I mean, if I'd have known better, I'd have realized that I live in Hollywood and I can go to, like, there were stores that used to have hundreds of stills. I probably could have driven up to one of those stores and found that. I did not know that, but there was one book on retro TV, and in there was one black and white picture of HR Puffin stuff, and I was like, now I need more.
Yeah.
And I think, that it's going to be interesting as we get to be really old men, not just generally old men, to sort of see where how that collector or that obsessive person finds a new approach to satiate that need for more of that thing you loved.
Yeah. One thing I think is missing, or we're losing, and I'm speaking about myself here too, is you talk about that one picture, or back in the day it might be one trading card, or even an ad in a TV guide or something that I'd cut out and put on my wall. Because the media was so limited, those things took on so much significance and were so rare, and because it's limited, you have more time to just pour over it. To just sit literally in my bedroom and just look at this one image for an hour, and now I'll be going through Instagram or something, and yeah, I see the coolest thing in the world, something that my jaw drops. And I'm like, oh, this is, and I'll like it. Maybe I'll even copy save it to a folder, and then 10 seconds later, I want my next hit. I want my next hit. And I get upset at myself for that. That this is something that if I would have come across when I was growing up, it would have occupied my whole week, And now it just gets piled on top of that. And that's something that I think the digital age is causing us to lose. I don't know.
I do think that there, and we have seen some pushback on that. We have, knitting was the one thing I noticed is it's a slowing, you can't knit quickly. You have to knit, and this thing comes out of it, and there will be pushback on that, and it will be through slow culture. There will be a slow culture that can't help but come and be championed by people in certain ways we can't imagine. And that was one of my things was we got to have such a great childhood, I think, of these objects being so magical, and the Star Wars figures, and the Incredible toys, and the Green Ghost game, and just all of these magical things. And talking to you about this, it makes me think the kids are having that same experience, but there's a lot of it is virtual.
Yes.
And it is, Minecraft is so incredibly important to kids.
Yeah.
That they're going to get to be adults, and they're going to have to somehow process what Minecraft meant to them, and it's not going to be just through a re-ownership, because that information is still going to be available, but they're going to find these crazy ways to re-own it that we can't even comprehend with the limited just comic book object,
right?
You when you get to that that little piece of art of the moneymaker, and this is the tears roll down your eyes as you see this thing that has been reproduced in a fractional size, in front of you.
Yeah, you're right. What will the hunt be? Will they? Yeah, you're right. We can't imagine. I'm imagining virtual reality, but we already have that. So, I think we agree that that spirit will continue one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it will just cause them to create and say, what I wanted in Minecraft? I wanted to be able to do this, and that next big video game creation will come out of some kids. Your thing is, what you couldn't have as a kid drove you,
Right.
And I was talking to somebody, maybe I was talking to Jason about it, and it's like, we were only 10 years out from, Funny Face stopped production in 78, and then I was looking for it in 86.
Mm-hmm.
Like 8 years,
right?
Not 100 years, not 1,000 years, 8 years, and then now it's been 30 years since then.
Yeah. That whole time scale is very interesting. That's a whole other topic, though. Something 8 years 8 years old to me now seems new still, and readily attainable. And yeah, anyway, yeah.
Well, thank you for being
You're
my
very
second
welcome.
guest. We talked each other to death again, and your story's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Any final words?
I'm just thankful. It's been nice. Just to be thinking. I mean, it's been a rough weekend, but being able to use this to help balance that has been so welcome. Just to kind of go down these little rabbit trails, and I think there's value. There's therapeutic value there. So I'm thankful to you for all the worlds you opened up to me, and galleries and products, and you sent me a bunch of these too. I want to
Yeah,
thank you again.
you're welcome. I always when I meet collectors, I meet a lot of collectors, but I meet people that I find as very kindred souls. I'm at heart, I'm at heart. I have to be a dealer because I have to deal to be able to buy what I want.
Right.
I've not had a job in 20 years, and so you know it's as a freelancer, it's like you hunt and make, or you're gone. And so, but sometimes I have things like those, and it's just I know the intrinsic value of those. You're going to put those to some use
Mm-hmm.
someday.
Yep, I am.
That they would have just sat in a box with me, and I would have loved them. I'd pull them out and give them love. But, sort of transferring them onto you is going to hopefully at some point, make them into a great project.
I hope so. Well, and that's also inspired me to the whole pay it forward thing. I've had that pop in my head before. When there's a perfect home for this thing, I thought, people. Dan has done that for me. I'm just going to do that and put this object in this better home too. So thanks for that. Thank you for the inspiration and the levity and everything else. So yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for being on the show, and I'm sure everybody's going to really enjoy this one.
I hope so. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Kirk. You're a great guest. Great stories. Go look for his books. They might be a little bit hard to find, but both of them are really things you want to have, whether you're a collector or just interested in the nostalgia of all this stuff. And another great episode. And come back, check out my other videos. More interviews coming. Thanks for watching.